Royal stands inside the massive hall, accompanied by his companions. His breaths come out ragged. Even though people call him hero, there's nothing heroic about him right now. Up ahead, Demon Lord Lilianodi eyes him with faint interest, commenting on his skills before asking if he'd like to join her ranks as a servant, promising a special reward. Her words grate on him, and irritation burns hotter when he catches himself staring at her looks. Cynthia snaps him back to focus, her voice sharp as she orders him to get his act together. She radiates stern authority meant to pass judgment. Royal's attention wanders again, drifting back to her with distracted eyes. Rinka, composed yet blunt, calls him out immediately, reminding him that those kinds of distractions aren't welcome here. Everything about her screams discipline and commitment to strength. Suddenly, Sarah shows up, fire dancing around her as she warns Royal to stop messing around, or she'll make him regret it. She's never been one to bluff, especially with her command over flames. Royal mutters that he gets it. His party members are all very important to him. Wanting to finish what they started, he prepares himself for one final charge. The others echo his resolve. Lilianode grins, ready to take them all on. Right before they charge, the scene blurs into nothing. Royal blinks his eyes open. He's just been zoning out again. The sunset outside signals the end of his shift. He scoffs to himself, reminded harshly that he isn't some hero, just a gatekeeper stuck in his daydreams. Disappointment settles in. The dream ended right when it got good. These mental escapes are the only things that keep him sane, breaking up days spent rooted to one spot. He's been doing this job ever since recruitment, 15 years gone in a blink. Back when he was 15, knights approached him, impressed by how tall he was for his age. Grown men had to crane their necks to meet his gaze. They praised his build and assured him his future was secure. He'd been so excited back then, feeling like everything was finally starting to fall into place. However, that hope didn't last long. Rumors spread quickly once he joined. Despite his great physique, he had zero skills with a sword or spells. Their praise slowly shifted into quiet judgment. Once the commander checked up on him, acknowledging his efforts and suggesting he try his luck with magic training. For a moment, Royal felt hopeful again, thinking he might finally belong somewhere. But his time learning magic was a disaster. Even the simplest spells refused to cooperate, and his instructor clearly saw no promise in him. Eventually, he was called back and had to drop the mage course. Seeing no hope for him, the commander assigned him gate duty. They stuck him at the North Gate, a dead zone where nothing ever happens. His orders were mind-numbingly simple. Stand there, don't talk, don't move, and send a message in case of an emergency. So he stands there, day after day, building fantasies in his head to pass the time. In his mind, he always imagines himself as a powerful spellcaster with loyal allies by his side. He fights epic battles, saves innocent people, and gets words of admiration instead of ridicule. His daydreaming session is interrupted by a knight who tells him that he has been summoned by the commander. Inside the office, Royal is told they're letting him go. His job will be replaced by a magic surveillance tool. And just like that, the past 15 years wasted. He walks out in stunned silence, memories of praise and promises swirling in his mind like cruel ghosts. They said his build guaranteed a future, but now they're dumping him like nothing. Every harsh word about his lack of skill echoes through him, mixing with regret for the 15 years he wasted just standing there. But then a different kind of feeling takes over, a surge of happiness for finally being free. Now he can finally pursue his dream. Without looking back, he leaves the city walls behind. He decides he's going to be an adventurer. It's his turn to take center stage in his own life. His journey begins here. A week drifts by. Nothing life-changing happens. He helps an old lady who threw her back out. That's about it. Still, the freedom to walk and see new roads feels better than rotting at a gate. Soon, the adventurer town of Melki comes into view, and hope sparks in his chest that something interesting might finally happen. That's when he spots a girl ahead, panting like she's been running for miles. Thinking this could be his moment, he approaches her, ready to ask if she's all right. But when their eyes meet, he freezes up completely. He realizes he hasn't spoken to anyone properly in years. Words trip and die in his throat, leaving him stuttering. The girl looks uneasy, unsure what to think of him. Overwhelmed by the situation, his mind goes blank, and he drops to the ground. The girl bursts into laughter, seeing him in such a state. At the very least, Royal did manage to calm her down, even though it came at the cost of his dignity. The girl apologizes for laughing and helps him to his feet. Royal realizes that she is injured. He notices her ankles swollen and twisted. Despite this, she puts on a brave face and assures him that she is all right. In that instant, Royal finally realizes how stupid he has been. This is not his fantasy world where he saves the heroine. This girl is a real person who is kind enough to help him despite being injured. Guilt prickles in his chest for always escaping into fake worlds. He wishes he could help her for real. His mind conjures an image of him in mage robes, chanting a healing spell while she thanks him tearfully. Reality crashes back down, leaving him cursing himself for daydreaming again. But unexpectedly, her ankle begins to glow softly and realigns before his eyes. She gasps, thanking him in disbelief, saying she's never seen magic like that. Royal just points at himself in confusion, wondering how he managed to do it. Magic is a powerful tool, allowing one to control a part of the world itself and bend it to their will. However, such power isn't common. Only about 10% of people have even a hint of it, and only a handful are able to sharpen their skills enough to matter. Most are stuck with flashy party tricks at best. It works like a pyramid, many at the bottom with potential they never unlock, while true mastery, like completely healing someone, sits reserved for the elite at the top. The girl's ankle becomes as good as new, something far beyond normal reach. Royal, the one who cast the spell, stands frozen, still processing what just happened. She stares at him in amazement, thinking he must be a powerful mage. He tells her his name, still trying to piece together what just happened. She also introduces herself as Diz. The truly weird thing isn't that he was able to cast a full recovery spell out of the blue, although that in itself is a miracle, but because the spell he used wasn't even a real spell. It was just a cool-sounding spell he had made up during his daydreaming sessions. Diz points at the scratch slashing across his cheek and tells him to fix that too. Royal gives it another shot. The cut vanishes like it never existed. Diz looks stunned, but Royal just feels thrown off. Back when he applied to join the Knight's Order, not a flicker of magic showed up in his tests. Everyone said he was hopeless. So what's happening now? Diz asks him if he's headed to Melki. When he answers yes, she immediately suggests going together. He wonders why she would want to do that. Usually, people are wary of him because of his size and lack of social skills. However, Diz assures him that she isn't bothered by that. She is able to look past the physical appearance and has realized that Royal is a good person. They start their journey to Melki together. Diz begins opening up about how she got here. She was kicked out as a Saintess. She trained in the Holy City, but no matter how long she studied, sacred magic never came to her. Eventually, they kicked her out. Furious, she tore her robes in front of everyone and stormed off. That's when she tripped and busted her ankle right before he stumbled upon her. Royal wants to offer something comforting, but talking isn't his strength. He does manage to blurt out a clumsy line of encouragement, but she has already moved on. Feeling as excited as ever, she announces her intentions to become an adventurer. He sneaks a look at her. Despite everything, she walks with her head high. To him, she looks strong as hell. Before either of them can continue, a scream rings out through the trees. They both freeze. The sound is clear. Someone needs help. Diz turns to him and asks if he can use detection magic to pinpoint where it came from. Royal recalls one of his daydreams. This is exactly the kind of situation he used to imagine. Him being a cool assassin, an ambush in the woods, and a damsel in distress. Then he would use a powerful spell called Mundus Couvre. He lifts his hand and uses the spell. Surprisingly, this one works as well. He picks up movement ahead. The reading is sharp. 3 high orcs and a lone human locked in combat around 500 meters away. Diz sprints forward without a moment's pause. Meanwhile, Royal stares at his hand in disbelief. All this time, he thought he was powerless. But now, something is different. And if he can pull off detection magic, maybe attack spells aren't out of reach either. During another daydream, Royal fights an enormous ancient dragon, powerful enough to wipe countries off the map. When all seems lost, the heroic Royal comes to the rescue. He casts a powerful spell called Omnis, defeating the dragon in one hit. As his chant wraps up, reality snaps back. The magic he only imagined before is now real. It locks onto actual enemies. High orcs advancing on nearby knights. The knights freeze, stunned, silent. One of them charges desperately, knowing full well that only death lies before him. Suddenly, a bright light envelops the area, evaporating the orcs into thin air. Diz and the knights stare, wide-eyed. The only thing that is left in the aftermath are the charred remains. Royal scans the area to make sure everyone is okay, and Diz assures him they're unharmed. She asks if that spell was really his. He hesitates but admits that it was. Her eyes light up, praising him for his insane strength. That's when it hits him. His fantasy spells really are coming alive. The healing spells, the detection magic, and now the attack incantations. All stuff he thought he'd never use. He always believed he had zero talent, but now they're working. However, the question remains, why? The knights he saved come forward to thank him. From inside the carriage, a young noble girl named Flora comes out. She introduces herself as the daughter of the local lord. She bows formally to express gratitude for saving their lives. Royal stands there, awkward and silent. He knows he needs to say something, but once again his poor social skills hinder that. Suddenly a thought sparks in his head. Some might call it genius, while others would call it dumb. He realizes that if he can use magic from his imagination, then maybe he can pull the same trick with his confidence and conversation stats. He decides to test it out, but when he opens his mouth wearing an expression stiff as stone, his introduction turns out clunky and borderline creepy. His forced manners make everyone tense up. Flora's guards ready themselves to defend her, thinking Royal is a threat. Before anything happens, Diz quickly intervenes. She drops to her knee politely and explains everything in a calm voice, apologizing for Royal's awkwardness and assuring them he's just too nervous to speak right. Her words smooth the tension away. Flora, touched by Diz's grace, apologizes back for overreacting and invites them to her family estate in Melki. During the carriage ride there, Royal goes quiet, realizing how terrible his social skills are compared to Diz. Meanwhile, Diz and Flora chat like they've known each other forever. Because of their same age and personality, they quickly hit it up. Royal watches silently, thinking Diz really is the definition of communication goals, like the ancient dragon of communication. This phrase sticks with him, and with it, a half-serious idea brews in his head. When they reach the estate, Flora welcomes them warmly. Royal realizes he needs to figure out how to talk like a normal person, even if he can never be like Diz. As they stand there, Diz casually asks if he's solo. He blinks, unable to understand what she means at first, so she clarifies, solo adventuring, without a party. He tells her this is pretty much his first time, which leaves her surprised. She had assumed that he must be an experienced adventurer because of his powerful magic and fancy gear. After thinking for a bit, she smiles and makes him an offer. Why not team up as a party? At dinner, Flora's dad greets them with a warm smile, telling them to eat as much as they want. He thanks Royal for looking out for his daughter, treating him almost like part of the family. Meanwhile, Royal just sits there, lost in his head about what Diz said earlier about teaming up. The others chat about their adventuring plans. Flora offers them a reward and help if they ever need anything. After a long conversation, Diz finally snaps him out of his thoughts, and they head to bed. Later that night, Royal lies sprawled on the bed, staring at the ceiling. He admires Diz and is grateful for the offer to team up. But deep down, doubt whispers he isn't good enough. He slaps himself, forcing himself to shut up those thoughts and respond confidently. The next morning, he walks up to Diz's room with his nerves jangling. He blurts out a half-assed request to form a party with her. She immediately agrees as if it's no big deal. Flora pops up and greets them. Diz and Flora start chatting like it's any normal day, and Diz casually mentions she slept like a log. Royal stands off to the side watching her, thinking how natural she is at talking to people. In his head, he crowns her the ancient dragon of smooth conversation, feeling amazed and slightly jealous. Not long after, they leave Flora's estate. She once again thanks them and assures them that her doors are always open to them. After saying goodbye, they head off on their way. As they continue down the road, it hits him. After years of feeling stuck, his life is finally moving again. As he wipes his eyes, Diz looks at him and asks what their plan is now. Royal pauses, remembering the basic adventurer routine. Register at the guild, gear up, and dive into dungeon work. Just as he is about to say it, Diz interrupts him and suggests finding a base first. She's had enough of crappy inns and wants a real place, especially since they plan on staying in Melki for a while. Royal agrees, guessing she probably has to deal with plenty of idiots giving her trouble because of how she looks. So they come up with a plan to use a negotiation signal. Inside the real estate office, Zombie, the manager, sips his tea, feeling smug about his 20 years on the job and thinking about that cursed mansion he can never lease out. When Diz and Royal walk in asking about the haunted place, he instantly pegs them as clueless rookies. He throws out a price of 150,000 yen a month, acting like it's a steal for such a huge property, even with the ghosts. Hearing this, Diz uses a signal, and Royal quickly jumps into action. He stands up, throwing death glares at Zombie. The hardened agent's confidence begins to waver, seeing death standing before him. Earlier, Diz had instructed Royal about a little haggling trick. 9 times out of 10, realtors are trying to overcharge the customer. So, she comes up with a simple plan. When she touches her earlobe, that's his cue to turn up the heat. Diz doesn't blink. She calmly points out that exorcisms alone could run 2 million yen. Zombie quickly composes himself and tries to haggle back, throwing out a price of 100,000. Once again, they do the same trick. Diz insists on 50,000, and faced with Royal's death glares, Zombie's confidence cracks more and more. In the end, he gives up and accepts 50,000 a month. Outside, Diz and Royal celebrate their victory. The first step has been completed, headquarters acquired. Royal asks her if he went overboard back there, thinking about how Zombie's face looked ready to burst into tears. Diz admits it was intense, but considering the mansion's cursed state, this is a fair deal. Now it's time to exorcise the spirits, and who better to do it than the great mage, Sir Royal. There are low-level ghosts which form because of the negative emotions of a deceased human. On their own, they are easy to defeat. However, when thousands of them come together, they form a wraith. Wraiths are nasty pieces of work. High-tier specters born when piles of leftover feelings like grief, rage, and regret clump together. Animals soaked in all that emotional sludge twist into monsters and radiate a suffocating aura. Just being near them makes people want to puke, sends shivers down their spine, and weighs down their chest. But once they merge into a full-on wraith, they turn vicious and ridiculously lethal. Royal and Diz stand facing a crumbling old mansion on the outskirts of town. The place practically screams haunted house. Diz throws a look at Royal, asking what he thinks. There are different types of wraiths, but this one seems particularly nasty. She just shrugs, muttering how she should have asked for an even cheaper rent. She once again asks Royal about his opinion. She points out that even a high-ranking priest would struggle handling something like this. Royal doesn't answer, lost in thought. In his mind, Diz morphs into Ribel, his idea of perfection. She wears elegant formal wear and addresses him as Your Excellency, asking him to lend his strength to wipe out the threat. It echoes the day she invited him to join her team. For a brief second, he lets himself believe it's real. Trying to clear his head, he moves forward and starts casting. Light sparks as divine energy gathers in his hand. Declaring himself as the one who purges shadows, he blasts a spell straight at the mansion. An unearthly scream rips out from inside. Diz flinches but quickly analyzes what she just witnessed. That trick, abbreviated chanting, is something only the top fraction of mages can pull off. Compressing and firing magic instantly needs insane control and raw power. Seeing Royal do it like it's nothing leaves her stunned. She wonders who the hell he really is. Royal remains unbothered, saying she should be safe now. Diz replies softly, still stunned. When he repeats himself, she gives a small smile, lightly thumps his back and thanks him. The gesture makes something warm bloom in his chest. Even though the mansion has been cleaned of the wraith, it still needs cleaning in a literal sense. Instead of cleaning the entire mansion in one go, they decide to do only the dining room for today. She even suggests throwing a party to celebrate their new base. Royal watches her ramble on about quests and future plans while they eat, both of them covered in grime. Even though it's a small thing, this is the most fun he has had in a while. The next morning, Royal wakes up feeling surprisingly refreshed. Yesterday was good. Hell, it felt satisfying. He thinks back to the drinking party. It was his first ever. Then a voice comes from outside. Someone is calling out, checking if anyone is home. Royal drags himself up to see who it is. He wonders if it might be a neighbor, or maybe even a cute girl, but brushes off the thought. Still, his stomach twists a bit from nerves. When he opens the door, he finds a young girl standing there with a staff in her hand. She politely introduces herself, asking if there was a powerful wraith living here recently. Royal confirms that there was. She explains that she sensed a strong magical presence while passing by yesterday, and now that someone has moved in, she figures whoever handled it must be inside. She asks if it was him. Royal nods. She tilts her head, saying the magic clearly wasn't holy magic, but it was definitely strong. She wonders how a normal exorcism spell could pack that kind of punch. Royal doesn't reply right away. Instead, he freaks out and quickly shuts the door. Leaning his weight against it, he admits to himself she's giving off a weird vibe. Polite, sure, but almost unnervingly intense. Outside, she starts banging on the door. She keeps calling out, asking if he's still there, saying she just wants to talk. Royal stays silent. The knocking doesn't stop. Something about her persistence rattles him more than any wraith ever could. Royal stands frozen inside, unsure if he should answer. Her blank expression doesn't shift, her presence unsettling enough that even nearby birds flit away in a rush. The next day, Royal tells Diz all about the strange encounter. She nods casually like it's no big deal. She even expresses her interest in meeting that girl. At this point, he isn't even surprised. She is the ancient dragon, after all. Later that day, they decide to head out for shopping. Royal asks if they aren't going dungeon diving today, but Diz reminds him that they still lack basic supplies. In fact, unlike Royal, she doesn't even have basic armor yet. Royal glances at her dress, thinking how little protection it offers. The fabric looks paper-thin, completely impractical as armor. So they decide to head to the shop. Inside the equipment store, Diz picks out a new outfit. He can't help but think how cute she looks, but can't gather the courage to say it. Now that the equipment has been sorted, they need a magic bag next. Diz explains that it's a must-have for any adventurer. It allows one to carry huge amounts without weighing them down. They're only sold at tool shops, so they head there next. At the tool shop, Diz grabs a bag and hands it to Royal, saying she's always wanted one of these. Then she starts piling up every supply they need, ticking off their checklist with efficient speed. Royal just stands there, watching the stack grow, realizing how little he's helped. Once everything has been taken care of, they head to the guild to register themselves. When they reach the guild, the place is packed. Royal pauses at the entrance, feeling every eye snap onto him. He quickly puts on his helmet to avoid their gaze. Behind the counter, a woman with cat ears greets them and introduces herself as Mocha from the Melki branch. She asks what brings them in, and Diz explains they're here to register and form a party. Mocha asks Royal to take off his helmet, and he mumbles an apology before doing so. Her eyes widen for a moment at the sight of him. She goes silent for a moment, but quickly comes back to her senses. She walks them through the guild's rules, how the quest board works, and how adventurer rankings function. Royal listens closely. When she asks for a party name, Diz tells her that it'll be Altera Vita. This is a name they came up with together, since they've both been fired recently, and the name reflects their new start. Mocha compliments the name and complete the registration. She hands over their tags, cautioning them not to lose them since replacements come with a fee. Royal stares at his tag, feeling something shift deep inside him. He never imagined stepping away from life as a gatekeeper, but now he's officially something else. Mocha gives him a supportive look, trying to ease his nerves. Now! It's finally time. The dungeon waits. Across the guild hall, a group of men watch them. One of them talks to Miguel, telling him that this one is a dud. Miguel stays silent, gaze fixed on Royal and Diz. Another man snickers that even the demon god wouldn't mess with them. Miguel keeps his eyes fixed on Royal. His aura is intense, advertising his power to everyone who can feel it. The others tell him that they should back out, but Miguel lets out a tired sigh, saying they don't really have that option. He walks up to Diz and Royal and strikes up a friendly conversation. He asks if they're the new registrations, and Diz confirms with a quick nod. He introduces himself and tells them that he needs to talk to them privately. Royal sneaks a brief look at him. Judging from his worn-out equipment and the way he carries himself, it is clear that Miguel is a seasoned adventurer. Royal once again begins to feel nervous, wondering if he has done something to offend him. But before he can speak, Diz snatches the opportunity again and agrees to hear him out. A minute later, they're standing in the middle of a fighting ring. People nearby start picking up on what's happening. This is the usual newbie hazing. Miguel, calm and unfazed, explains that this is the guild custom. Fresh recruits always spar against a senior member. That's just how it goes, nothing personal. Diz steps up with zero hesitation, volunteering herself for the fight. But Royal moves before her, stepping into place ahead of Diz. He can't keep leaning on Diz forever. He needs to stand on his own 2 feet. Royal introduces himself and readies his spear. He hasn't spent much time training with it. On top of that, he can't use his spells. That'll probably kill his opponent, which is obviously not a desirable outcome. His thoughts drift again. He's standing with Alice, prepared to face the Demon Lord. Just like the typical protagonist, he impresses the girl and moves with absolute confidence. As the Demon Lord emerges, he unleashes the strongest defensive magic in existence, Omnino Nomerest. The spell takes effect in reality. Even though visually nothing changes, the air around the ring suddenly becomes heavy. Being an experienced adventurer, Miguel instantly feels it. The guildmates nearby, oblivious to the tension, yell at him to stop stalling and get on with it. Miguel ignores them. He knows something isn't right, but he can't just stand there forever. With a short inhale, he braces himself and lunges. He swings his weapon with all his might. However, as the sword closes in, nothing happens. Royal begins to wonder if the spell really did activate, because if it didn't, then he is as good as dead. His magic has worked so far against different monsters, but will it work against a seasoned adventurer? But all his worries were for naught. Just as the sword makes contact, It reflects off of his armor and sends Miguel hurling back. The entire guild falls into dead silence. Royal remains rooted in place, confused about what just happened. Miguel, the top dog of the guild, has been knocked out in a single self-inflicted hit. Back when Royal worked the gates, his biggest nightmare wasn't some hulking monster. It was those mosquitoes. When wrapped head to toe in plate armor, if one manages to sneak inside, it's over. They'd feast on him without care, leaving him gritting his teeth and cursing the itch. He always thought they were scarier than any beast he'd faced, but suddenly, out of nowhere, they just stopped showing up. Now he realizes that he must have unknowingly triggered his absolute impenetrable isolation space. A spell created to repel mosquitoes seems to have sent Miguel crashing to the ground. Diz wraps him up in a hug from behind, cheering him on. Royal feels a wave of gratitude, silently thanking those blood-sucking pests for forcing him to create the spell in the first place. Around them, their guildmates watch with wide eyes, amazed that he defeated Miguel so easily. Another adventurer suddenly steps forward. Believing Royal to be a renowned knight, he formally introduces himself as Muniyoshi. The crowd starts murmuring upon hearing his name. Muniyoshi wastes no time before asking Royal for a duel. Royal tries to brush it off, insisting he isn't worth challenging, but Muniyoshi only chuckles, believing Royal is only being humble. Without warning, he surges forward, stopping moments before striking him. Muniyoshi takes Royal's lack of reaction as a sign of his confidence, but the truth is far from that. He had moved so fast that Royal didn't even see him. Muniyoshi takes his place, ready for the duel to begin. Royal throws away his spear, realizing that it's useless, but once again his actions are mistaken for unwavering confidence. Muniyoshi warns him that he won't be as easily defeated as Miguel. However, Royal doesn't see the difference. Both are leagues stronger than him. He tries to explain that, but once again the same pattern follows. Muniyoshi feels offended at being underestimated and vows to finish it in one strike. Royal tries to explain, but it's already too late. Suddenly, Diz storms in. She blitzes forward and plants her explosive rhythm blast, punch into Muniyoshi's face. The impact sends him flying across the hall, crashing through the wall. Royal stands frozen, brain lagging behind what he just witnessed. Diz glances at him, casually saying she knew Muniyoshi wouldn't listen to reason. So she decided to take matters into her own hands. Royal is left shocked. He always knew she was confident, but seeing this side of her leaves him speechless. Muniyoshi's reaction is pretty much the same. She studies him for a second, probably trying to read his thoughts. He quickly shakes his head, trying not to piss her off. Later that night, the group sits down for a feast. After the battle, Miguel explains the purpose of this event. Rookie adventurers often come in brimming with hollow confidence, which usually get them killed in stupid ways. To stop that, the adventurers took it upon themselves to knock them down a peg. Though in Royal's case, Miguel admits that it wasn't needed. Eventually, Miguel passes out from all the booze. Royal quietly looks around at everyone, thinking how kind these people have been since they've arrived. Maybe things won't be so bad here after all. Out of nowhere, the girl from yesterday appears, apologizing for barging into his house. At first, he draws a blank on who she is. When she puts on her hat, it all comes flooding back. She apologizes again for how she acted, and he waves it off, saying it's fine. Watching her now, he realizes she isn't as terrifying after all. She asks him about the magic he used earlier. Royal blinks, surprised she noticed. She leans in slightly, eyes firm, and asks him to take her on as his student. His eyes dart to Diz, knocked out cold nearby after downing too much wine. Earlier during the guild's strength assessment, when Royal blocked Miguel's attack, it grabbed everyone's attention. Most folks assumed his armor tanked the hit, but this girl clearly thinks otherwise. She comes right out and asks if it was magic. She also brings up how he purified the mansion the day before. Pulling off an exorcism like that shouldn't have been so easy. She was there to witness it. Once again, she presses him to teach her. However, this isn't something he can teach. He decides to turn her down politely, telling her that she isn't ready yet. But his words backfire instantly. Her face scrunches up, tears welling in her eyes. Before he can explain himself, she bolts away, sobbing, swearing she'll become better. As she vanishes into the distance, Royal wonders if she completely misread his meaning. Just as he is thinking that, she spins around mid-run, shouting that she'll never quit until she proves she is worthy of being his student. What he meant was that he isn't ready to take on a disciple yet, not the other way around. But yeah, he has a feeling she didn't catch that. Later that night, inside the guildmaster's office, the guildmaster asks Mocha about the new recruits. The first thing out of her mouth is a comment about his face, calling him good-looking. He quickly clarifies he is asking about their capabilities as adventurers, not compliments. She goes on about how the hot knight wiped the floor with Miguel, and apparently didn't even break a sweat doing it. The guildmaster silently clocks how smitten she is. Switching focus, he asks about the other newcomer. Mocha mentions her outfit and how it resembled that of a martial artist. She goes on to explain that she might be tied to the church. That piques the guildmaster's curiosity. If she really is connected to the Saccharine Knights, a big name among church affiliates, then she is worth keeping tabs on. For now, he decides they'll just watch quietly. Mocha nods, promising to report if anything comes up. As she leaves, the guildmaster hopes nothing troublesome lands in their laps. Elsewhere, Royal recounts the whole thing to Diz. As he finishes, Diz slaps a hand over her face, leaving Royal blinking in confusion. She asks him about what he thinks of the girl, and he replies that she seems like a clueless newbie with weird misconceptions. He figures she is a magician from the way she looked. But then Diz drops the bomb. She isn't some random amateur. She is a top-tier adventurer, probably the best mage in town. Royal is surprised upon hearing that. Diz carries on, explaining that the girl's name pops up constantly in the adventurer's newspaper. Her magical prowess ranks among the highest, and she has the chops to be a court magician. Even her gear is top of the line. Since he spent most of his life guarding the gate, it makes sense he hasn't heard of her before. Then she asks if he gets why the girl looks so frustrated. Royal begins to answer, but confusion still tugs at his thoughts. Diz doesn't sugarcoat it. Someone of her caliber lowered herself to beg him for guidance, and what did he do? Royal's stomach starts churning, recalling how he told her she isn't skilled enough. Or at least that's how it came off. Panic flares as he realizes the mess he made. Diz lets out a warm laugh, calling him hilarious. She reassures him that the girl doesn't seem like a bad person and suggests they properly talk it out with her next time. Realizing he has been out of social practice for 15 years, Diz offers to help him with communication training. Royal thanks her sincerely, and with that they agree to start practicing. Morning rolls around, and it's finally time to go dungeon diving. As they make their way to the dungeon, Diz notices the worried expression on his face. She tries to soothe his worries, advising him to enjoy it rather than be nervous. Royal agrees with a small nod. When they reach the guild hall, the place is buzzing. Adventurers crowd around the quest board, scanning for missions. Mornings are always a madhouse at the guild because of the first-come, first-serve policy. Suddenly, the guild doors slam open. A man bursts inside, gasping for air, and blurts out that a stampede has broken out. A horde of high orcs has appeared in the forest. The news sends an immediate jolt through the hall. It seems their first mission has arrived. When Royal stood guard at Saccarine's northern gate, his post was meant for stampede prep, a mass monster rush from the northern woods. Nothing like that happened in those 15 years, and honestly, most didn't think it ever would. In the present, the news about the stampede has caused a commotion. It usually happens once every few decades, so this kind of reaction is to be expected. The guildmaster strides in and calls an emergency request. A swarm of high orcs, about 60 strong, has shown up in the Est Forest. The news rattles everyone. On top of that, high orcs aren't like regular ones. Even B-rank adventurers struggle against a single one. Just one could level off a village. 60 would wreck the entire city. Despite the grim circumstances, the guildmaster offers them encouragement. Compared to dragons and wraiths, high orcs are small fry. If they fight together, they can definitely win. The guild roars in agreement. Orders come down to gear up and move out immediately. The forest is half a day's trek away. Everyone joining the quest head out with the guildmaster while Diz and Royal stay back since they're just newbies. Since he's already taken down 3 high orcs, for Royal the quest doesn't feel worth joining in. Instead, he wants to hit the dungeon. Diz lets out a shaky smile, saying they can't go dungeon crawling with all this going on. Instead, she suggests they head to the forest too. Helping out might wrap things up faster. They clasp hands and prepare to leave. Royal pauses. Something's gnawing at him. They were told about the 60 orcs, but he wants more information. Diz steps back as Royal places his palm on the dirt, casting Mundus. A massive beam of light pierces down onto the entire city, moving beyond the forest. The spell reveals movement. Diz blinks in shock, asking what just happened. Royal explains that it's the same spell he used during Flora's incident. This time, it worked perfectly. He spots a cluster of 62 high orcs heading straight for the city. The count matches the guild's report. But then his gaze darkens. There's another mass, 205 high orcs trailing behind them. The first wave's a decoy. The guild expects 60, which is the max they can handle. If they go all out on that group only to meet another force, triple the size, they're screwed. Total annihilation. Royal tells Diz to stay back. If nothing is done, then they're all dead. He can't let these people get wiped out. Lifting his hand, he channels a swirling mass of magic. He triggers the Omni spell. Dozens of magic spears explode outwards, streaking toward the Est Forest. The air rips apart with their sheer speed as they blaze toward the advancing high orcs. Diz watches with stunned silence. And with that, it's already over. Deep in the Est Forest, where the guild expected a brutal fight, silence reigns. They find no high orcs, just a huge crater. The guild master and everyone else stand frozen. They'd braced for a bloody clash, but it's over before they even raise their weapons. Diz stands stunned, wondering what just happened. She can't help but sing his praises. She asks if they should file a report, but Royal shoots down that idea. It's not like anyone is going to believe them anyways. On top of that, the guild is already very busy as it is. The same girl from earlier shows up again, literally shaking with excitement at Royal's amazing magic. She once again asks to be his disciple, her soul practically begging for it. Both Royal and Diz blink in surprise. Diz instantly recognizes her as Sandy, the girl Royal mentioned earlier. She introduces herself as Royal's party mate and encourages Royal to have a proper talk with her this time, since it'll be good practice for him. Royal, not sure what to say, tries to keep it chill, but she drops a bomb on him, confessing she fell in love at first sight. Royal goes into complete panic mode, but he has read enough romantic novels to know that in situations like this, it's usually not what you think. His intuition proves right as Sandy explains that she is in love with his magic. In fact, she even recognized the spell he used to stop the Stampede, calling it ultimate magic. The words catch Royal so off guard his mind goes blank. He drifts back into his fantasy world, where he is facing down a monster with his party. His party members cover for him while he charges his ultimate magic, and with a single blow he obliterates the monster, winning the affection of all his party members. Snapping back to reality, he sees Sandy watching him like a lost kid. Collecting himself, he apologizes to her because he can't take her as a disciple. But Sandy tries to convince him again, revealing that she's the top apprentice of the head court magician. Royal's brain short-circuits, wondering why someone like her would bother with him. He once again tells her that he can't teach her anything. She wonders if his magic is a secret technique passed down to him. Seeing no way out of this, Royal decides to come clean, and confesses that even he doesn't know why he can even use magic. She misinterprets it again, thinking it's some kind of original magic, which draws her interest even more. She bows her head deeply, practically begging him to take her on as a student. At a loss for words, he turns to Diz for help. She steps in with her usual cheerful attitude, saying it sounds like a blast. Now thinking about it, Royal also realizes that Sandy looks like a good kid, so it might not be a bad idea to let her join the party. Sandy lights up and thanks him over and over. Diz laughs softly, saying they've officially recruited a hardcore Sandy fan to the team, then suggests heading back to base. Once they're back, Diz suggests checking Royal's mana level. She tests herself first. Royal remembers the first time he checked his mana, which was when he joined the Night Order. Back then, his result had been in the single digits. But with the insane power he's been using lately, he figures that number must have jumped up. Diz gets a reading of 12. A beginner mage has a reading of around 50 to 100. Sandy goes next and reveals her readings just over 800. Someone with a reading past 1,000 could go down in history. With that added pressure, it's finally Royal's turn. He steps up, feeling a weird mix of anticipation and dread. The second he places the device in his mouth, it flares to life, showing a reading of 9,999. The shock on everyone's face is on another level. Diz stares at it, explaining the device only displays 4 digits, meaning his mana could be way beyond what's shown. Sandy looks starstruck, expecting nothing less from her master. Diz quickly cuts in, warning Royal that this level of power needs to stay a secret no matter what. He nods, but a pit forms in his stomach. With mana like that, he knows people will either want to dissect him or treat him like a living nuke. Diz tells him his magic isn't just strong, it's so far off the charts that normal people can't even wrap their heads around it. What feels casual to him looks downright freakish to everyone else. That's why he needs to watch his words. If he acts like his abilities are no big deal, people will get the wrong idea and chaos will follow. Hearing all that, Royal quietly accepts it. All those cool lines he used to imagine spouting after saving the day, stuff heroes say in epics, are officially off the table. Evening wraps around the Adventurers Guild as Royal stands quietly near the quest board. Everyone else has finished setting up Sandy's party, making Altera Vita officially a trio. They're still locked out of dungeon runs, but F-rank quests are finally on the table. The Stampede mess has blown over, lifting travel bans for everyone except the guild's top brass. As for their quest, Royal glances over the board. He points out a job that snagged his attention, a gig clearing out ghosts. It looks easy enough and the payout is good as well. Most F-rank quests pay 2 or 3 grand in gold, but this one promises 20,000. That kind of cash screams hidden trouble. Royal hesitates, wondering if they should really go for it. But Sandy shrugs off his doubt, saying, if the master is cool with it, they'll handle whatever pops up. Diz leaves the decision up to him. If they're going to do it, he better take point. With their choice locked in, Diz elbows Royal to talk to the receptionist. Though reluctant, he drags himself over to Mocha at the front desk. He tries to speak, but he's as stiff as a robot like usual. Mocha calmly asks for the request sheet and his adventurer tag. Royal realizes his tag is still dangling around his neck, and he has no clue how to unclip it. Mocha offers a hand and tells him to lean down. Her unexpected kindness catches him off guard, but he obeys. However, instead of just unhooking it, she wraps her arms around him and pretends she's struggling to get it off. She teases that it's stuck and keeps holding on to him before finally slipping it free. She takes the papers, says she'll handle the processing, and reminds him he can always ask her for help again. When he returns, Diz asks how it went. Royal tells her that the request's been accepted, but he's still reeling from what just happened. Diz notices his expression and asks about it. He brings up Mocha's weird behavior, thinking she might be plotting something, maybe dumping extra work on them or manipulating them somehow. Talk about being dense on a whole other level. Diz assures him that he's probably just reading too much into it. Sandy points out that Mocha usually doesn't even look twice at other male adventurers. Diz adds that it seems like Mocha genuinely likes him. He's strong and honest, which makes him stand out among women. Not to mention that he is easy on eyes as well. Royal goes stiff, stunned speechless by the compliment. The other two are surprised that he had no clue. Diz also points out that this is probably why his old colleagues envied him. Royal suddenly has that moment, wondering what he had been doing all his life. Diz, however, quickly clarifies that she isn't with him for his looks. Guys who only rely on their faces piss her off. Now that he has stopped wearing his helmet, he probably won't be left alone anymore. He draws in a deep breath and reminds himself the past is done. He's finally become the adventurer he always wanted to be, and it's time to live this new life. With that said, they head off to start their first job. They arrive at the site, which is obviously a graveyard. Royal wonders why a simple ghost hunt pays so much. Diz explains that holy water alone is enough to wipe out ghosts, and the cost of that stuff is included in the reward. Low-level ghosts aren't dangerous by themselves, but when a bunch of them pile up, they merge into something nastier. So they need to be defeated before that happens. Not like it's going to matter either way when faced with Royal's magic. Each bottle of holy water costs about $1,000, and around 10 ghosts show up each night, so supply costs stack quick. Diz adds that after expenses, adventurers still pocket around 7,000 gold, which isn't bad. So basically, it's meant to help rookie adventurers make some easy money. Though most people avoid ghost gigs because they're creepy. But with Royal here, they can easily make a solid profit. Diz heads up to the client's window to check in. The guy is sipping a drink and looks surprised to see her. He mentions that things have been quiet lately, but warns her not to half-ass it. She nods and grabs the keys. They reach the graveyard and unlock the gate. As they step inside, Diz instantly feels something off. Sandy picks up on it too. Royal wonders if a powerful spirit might be lurking by. He starts chanting his spell, but Sandy beats him to the punch. Royal watches, amazed at seeing actual magic. Diz assures him that everything is fine. She reminds them about the exorcism they pulled off at the base. The leftover power from that ritual drifted over here and wiped this place clean too. The ground and air are purified, meaning ghosts won't be spawning here for a good while. She realizes they just erased a job for other future adventurers as well. Feeling uneasy, he wonders if he messed up again, but keeps quiet and mumbles an apology. Diz tells him to chill out. He didn't do anything wrong. She winks and says, depending on how they word their report, they can spin this however they like. Royal asks if that's really okay, but accepts her take. Diz heads back to the client's place to file the report. She tells him the job's finished. The man looks skeptical, asking if they're seriously done already. He accuses them of chickening out. Diz shoots back firmly that there's nothing left. No ghosts will be showing up here for at least a year. Still skeptical, his tone flips, turning sharp as he orders her to get back to work. Diz's patience snaps, and she tells him he better understand what she's showing him. She holds up a cross. The client pauses. His face shifts when he sees it. He asks if she could be an Inquisitor. Watching from nearby, Royal remembers what the title means. Inquisitors are agents sent by the Holy Church to root out illegal acts wherever they find them. He'd seen a few pass through back in his gatekeeping days, but never paid much attention. Now it all clicks. The woman standing with them all along, Diz, was an Inquisitor. The client blinks in shock, unable to process what's going on. He shifts uncomfortably, but Diz steps in, letting him know she isn't here to lecture or report anyone. She just wants one thing. Meanwhile, Royal stands at a distance watching them. Impersonating an Inquisitor can get you executed, so if she is just doing it to scare him, it could backfire horribly. Diz keeps her tone steady and tells him to come along. First, she wants to show him something. With Royal and Sandy in tow, she guides the client to the graveyard. He is surprised to see that it was true. With things in this state, there's no way ghosts will show up. She then reminds him about her request. It's nothing difficult, just a simple favor. She asks him to keep putting up beginner quests like before for broke newbie adventurers. It isn't anything pricey or difficult. When he pauses, Diz casually flashes her investor key, not as a threat, but to clarify where she stands. That rattles him enough, and he caves instantly. She asks him to sign off on the quest form, and with that, their quest is complete. Later, the three sit at a small restaurant. Diz lets out a sigh, relieved that the quest mess is over and the ghost issue won't spiral out of control. Royal eyes her with quiet suspicion, bringing up what she said earlier. He asks if it's true. Diz explains that the inspector rumor isn't her doing. She's never claimed to be one. The client just jumped to that conclusion on his own. Royal points out that if the word gets out, she might be in trouble. But she shrugs it off, saying, "The church doesn't answer to the local lord, so there isn't anything to worry about." That reminds Royal of his gatekeeping days, how church folks came and went without being questioned. Diz adds that the church treats her like family anyway, so even if things go wrong, the worst she'll get is a light scolding. Their food arrives, and it looks incredible. They decide to mark the occasion, celebrating Sandy officially joining the crew and finishing her first real quest. They raise their glasses, and the food tastes just as good as it looks. While they eat, Royal lets himself relax, thinking about how peaceful the moment feels. Diz asks him how the adventurer life has been treating him so far. His mind drifts over the past few days, a rare stampede looming, Sandy becoming his apprentice, their ghost hunts together, and discovering his mana and spell powers. Putting it all together, it's been pretty damn fun so far. Diz beams, happy to hear it, and suggests they keep picking up quests as a team. Sandy chimes in, saying this has been her best day since she was accepted as his apprentice. The next morning, Royal wakes up after pulling an all-nighter reading books about conversation skills. He knows he's still nowhere near fully enjoying this adventurer life. One thing is clear. He needs to get better at talking to people. That's why he spends entire nights learning social techniques. As he walks out, he runs into Sandy. Recalling the first principle, accept what's said, he replies naturally. Sandy, looking a little anxious, admits she's been worried about barging in out of nowhere. Royal remembers the next tip, agree and affirm. He tells her it's perfectly fine and that he was looking forward to seeing her as well. Relief softens her face. Wanting to keep the flow going, he asks if she truly thinks he's fit to be her teacher. Sandy reassures him without hesitation. She explains that analyzing magic is her strong suit, and just witnessing his spells gives her plenty to study. She knows she still has a long way to go, but promises to keep improving. Royal thinks back to the book's advice about showing surprise, so he acts impressed. Sandy lights up, declaring she'll master his magic someday. Following the book's model, Royal gives her some praise, telling her she's driven as hell. That's when it hits him. He's just nailed the entire AEIOU model from memory without trying. Sandy notes how much easier it feels to talk to him today compared to yesterday. Royal finds himself amazed at how effective these conversation tricks are. Just the day before, he learned people thought he was good-looking. If he keeps sharpening his social skills, maybe he really will end up popular someday. Afterward, they join Diz for breakfast. Today is a special day for them because it's their first dungeon raid. They make their way to the town's west gate. At the entrance, they meet a young female guard. She looks him over and asks if he's one of the Sakharin Knights. He tells her he used to work as a gatekeeper. Her face lights up with excitement, thinking she is meeting one of the elites. Suddenly, all his conversation training flies out the window as he fumbles to explain. He remembers his old North Gate post where barely anyone ever passed, so there's nothing elite about it. Still, the girl is starstruck, asking to shake his hand. Royal is thrown off by her energy and brightness. When he shares his name, she gasps and declares she'll never wash her hand again. It stuns him to realize people actually say that. She assumes that he's in town on some secret mission and promises to keep quiet. Royal stands there saying nothing. She bows deeply, thanks them for their service, and lets them through. As they walk away, she whispers under her breath about how damn cool he is. Royal drifts into thought, realizing he didn't manage to say anything meaningful. He let her run wild with assumptions. Earlier conversations went well because the person was friendly and agreed with him, but this time he completely lost his grip on the exchange. Diz teases him, calling him an elite gatekeeper. Jokes aside, they need to focus. They're finally heading into the dungeon they've been waiting for. Royal nods firmly. Time to pull it together and move forward. Their first dungeon lies ahead, and nerves or not, all three are ready. With their resolve aligned, they step forward towards the dungeon of beginnings, prepared for whatever waits inside.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away. Had to find the person I'd become.